Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Turin here with another Total War Warhammer online commentary. In this particular battle, I'm going to be playing the Wood Elves against the Greenskins, so definitely going to be fun. I got Optimus Tree over here, he's ready to go, and let's get right into the army composition. So when you're playing against the Greenskins, or at least when I am, against the Wood Elves, generally speaking, you're going to assume that the Wood Elves are going to bring a lot of lightly armored troops, like War Dancers and Eternal Guards and things like that. And Eternal Guards are, one of those units, kind of like Men-at-Arms with Polearms with Bretonnia. They're just incredibly cost-effective. They have excellent leadership and pretty good combat stats with an armor-piercing anti-large bonus, so very nice there. So obviously, Biggins on paper are going to be a pretty good choice against the Wood Elves. So, I was just kind of assuming that he was going to bring a lot of Biggins, because again, they do have a bit of an anti-large bonus as well. So they can actually trade okay with Treekin, although Treekin do have the Forest Spirit, which provides 20% physical resistance, I believe. Let's go ahead and take a look just to make sure. So yes, it is 20%. So I figured Biggins would be a pretty popular pick, and War Dancers actually do quite well against Biggins. Granted, Biggins will cut through them as well, but still, I think it's a pretty decent trade. So War Dancers actually have 48 move speed, and they have 49 melee attack. So compared to Biggins over here, Biggins actually only have 38 melee attack, but Biggins do have slightly higher weapon strength, and they also have quite a bit more armor. So it's a pretty decent trade there, and I like War Dancers. They're quick, they can kind of get around the Greenskin flanks and can really cut through fodder units like Goblins as well. So on top of that, I do have a mixture of Treekin over here. Treekin are one of my favorite frontliners. They come in relatively low model counts, so the Lore of Life is very good at healing them. Because again, Lore of Life, unlike Invocation of Nehek and the Lore of Vampires, does not resurrect your dead combatants. Rather, it just heals their HP. So having low density units with high HP pools works pretty well with the Lore of Life. So I also do have some Dryads mixed in. Dryads hit pretty hard for how cheap they are. 33 weapon strength. They do cause fear also, which is pretty good against the Greenskins and Goblins and Biggins. But more importantly, they also do have the Forest Spirit. So again, that 20% mitigation on pretty much all of the Greenskins damage is pretty nice. So aside from that, in the front line, I also do have some Eternal Guards mixed in, and I like to just bring some of these guys just in case he does bring like the Arachnarok Queen, or if he does have some cav and he's trying to circumvent my flanks. It's pretty nice to have these spears. They do have an anti-large bonus and armor piercing and are quite good. Very high leadership too for how cheap they are. I mean, you can see when buffed by Durthu right now in his encouragement, they have 99 leadership, which is pretty incredible for like a 450 unit or 450 cost unit. So that's pretty much it for my entire front line. War Dancers, Dryads on the other side, and in the back, I do have two Glade Guards with Starfire Shafts. So the Greenskins typically don't bring a lot of armor against the Wood Elves, but still, if there's an Arachnarok Queen or something, and they're popular in most matchups, they can summon spiders on your back line, and it's a very powerful unit. It's very nice to have these Starfire Shafts here with the armor piercing. So I like these guys quite a bit, and hopefully they will hold the line. On top of that, I do have Optimus Tree here. He's got his sword out. He does have the Flock of Doom, but aside from that, I'm just going to use the Lamentation of Despair and just use him, and I believe he does cause fear and terror. So definitely, again, having him in the center of the Greenskin battle is going to be pretty valuable. So aside from that, I do have two spears in the flank, and that's pretty much it for my main army. And also, I'd like to point out, I do have some Hawk Riders. So Hawk Riders, I actually really like. I don't like them in a lot of matchups, but I really like them in the Greenskin matchup. Because again, the Greenskins aren't going to typically bring an Air Force to contest them. And Greenskins have a lot of light armored infantry and Orc Boar Boy Biggins and units like that you can kind of just fly overhead and just kind of harass. But also they do have an armor piercing dive. So against enemy lords, when you're able to isolate them, these guys can actually dive in and do some decent damage and are pretty good for like sitting in the back and shutting down the cannons if he decides to abandon them. Well, not cannons, but goblobbers and things like that. So or doom divers, getting them all confused. But let's get right into my opponent's army composition. That's pretty much it for me. And my opponent actually has some funny business going on. So he does have these two Goblin Wolf Riders that are hidden, so very well played. Definitely scary because I don't have the most defenses in the back line, and it's very easy to lose your focus when you see a big army like this with a lot of fodder. You assume that everything's there. So his two Goblin Wolf Riders back here, very good choice and very well played on my opponent's part as it pertains to deployment. So in his front line, he does have some fodder. He has some Gobos here, which are definitely going to be pretty good because Biggins aren't the tankiest. So having fodder units to kind of take the initial shock and then allow your Biggins to get in there and just hit like trucks is a pretty good choice. So I really like my opponent's build so far. So whole front line of Biggins, like I said, they're very good against the Wood Elves, just like they're good against Bretonnia. Granted, they are weak to missile fire, but still, he has a very overwhelming number of troops, and he also does have some Orc Boar Boy Biggins here and two Goblin Wolf Riders, so it's going to be pretty hard for my missile troops to function effectively. He does have Orc Arrow Boys, which are pretty interesting picks. I mean, the Orc missile units are pretty low tier across the board, but still, it provides him with some way of at least retaliating. And granted, my Eternal Guards, they only have 40 armor, so the Orc Arrow Boys can actually get in there and do a little bit of damage. So he does have two Goblin Big Bosses, and I think he actually has Wurzog, so he does have the Effigy of Degit. So it'll be interesting to see how he uses that and what he decides to trap. But of course, he does have the Foot of Gork, the Ere We Go, and the Gaze of, I think it's, what is that called? The Gaze of Mork or something, I think is what it's called. Yeah, the Gaze of Mork. So looks like he's already casting something, not 100% sure what it is, but oh, it looks like he's using his Gaze of Mork right here on my Hawk Rider. So in the back, he does have two Doom Divers. I actually really like that pick against the Wood Elves. A lot of squishy missile units. Doom Divers are very good at taking out, archers and units like that. And lastly, he does have some Orc Boar Boy Biggins. So without further ado, guys, let's get right into this army composition. You can see he does open up with that, he does open up with the Gaze of Mork there, and definitely gets matrixed by these Hawk Riders here, just completely misses. But you can see the Doom Divers actually coming into my front line already. So you guys will see they do pretty devastating damage. They slam into these War Dancers, which is, very good targeting, because again, the War Dancers are pretty elite. As it pertains to kind of, anti-light troops, I guess you could say. So he's using those War Dancers to hit them, and is doing a pretty good job so far. So he'll probably, honestly, be able to break this group before the fighting even starts. So in the back line, you can see his Goblin Wolf Riders are continuing to lurk in the brush. They're not getting terribly aggressive, but they'll probably be out relatively shortly, just kind of pressuring my back line. But the trees and all my other troops are advancing. The War Dancers got a little ahead of themselves, and I had them in a formation march, so I'm not sure why they were outpacing one another. It was a bit of a strange thing, but still, they're gonna take that beating, unfortunately. So my Hawk Riders over here are kind of just circling around, obviously not wanting to trade with these Orc Air Boys, because Hawk Riders are very squishy. They only have 15 armor, so even these really kind of low tier Orc Air Boys can actually do some serious damage to them if I'm not careful. So the War Dancers are advancing in the front line. You can see it looks like he's using some sort of dispel. It looks like a Foot of Gork, so he actually gets a Foot of Gork here, and it misses. So it made a little bit of contact with those Eternal Guards there, but unfortunately for my opponent, it did miss the Tree Cannon. That was definitely the desired target there. So my Dryads are going to engage here with their physical resistance, and they're going to do a pretty good job charging into these big uns. And the big uns are definitely better troops, and in the long run, the big uns will probably cut through them, but still, the Dryads are going to do okay here, and I'm definitely not disappointed with the way this engagement went out, because this is, they have that 20% mitigation of physical damage, so kind of spreading that across two groups isn't a bad choice. So I send my main infantry corps here with some trees and some spears, and, the tree can will do very well. The big uns are going to have trouble getting through, just how truly dense they are. So over here, some Dryads engage here, and some of my War Dancers having engaged over here. So this is definitely going to be some slicing and dicing going on over here. You can see the War Dancers are going to get in here, and I'd actually be eager to do some testing and see who would win in a one-on-one. But the War Dancers, have that really high melee attack, and it looks like they're actually out trading these big uns a little bit. So my apologies for those sirens going on outside, but let's see. So 49 models to 62, but the War Dancers do come in lower models, so relatively even trade for the most part. Still, it looks like it's actually starting to slightly favor my opponent. So Big Papa Dirthu's in here, and unfortunately for him, he's stomping out goblins, which definitely isn't what he wants to be doing. But it's always very cool when he crushes some fodder units and stuff. So you can see I do use an overcasted Flock of Doom on this main battle over here. I'm able to hit quite a few troops. And the Big Uns are actually routing against a lot of these guys. Their leadership's pretty low. You can see the Dryads in here. They do cause fear, guys, which is really nice. So having this kind of saturation here with Tree Cannon and Eternal Guards and just all those mixed up units with tankiness and DPS seems to be working out pretty well. And of course, the Flock of Doom is very, very essential in kind of cracking that. My Dryads did take a bit of a beating, but still, they're not going out easily, and they're doing a pretty good job here. So you can see my Spellsinger with the Lord of Life is a bit surrounded by enemy troops, so this is definitely a little bit of a precarious situation, but still, they're doing okay. So my opponent does get some Goblin Wolf Riders. I actually tried to intercept them, but I only had one group of spears and auxiliary, so I was only able to partially catch one of these groups. So the Goblin Wolf Riders got right into my missiles. They're doing a really good job. So that's actually pretty cool. I didn't never notice that they actually shoot in melee, and that guy does a little bit of a Legolas move. Man, they have some cool fighting animations. He did like a somersault and then shot an arrow with that Wolf Rider, so pretty awesome. But still, the Wolf Riders are out trading me very well back here. He was able to essentially rout off a group of Blade Guards, and over here, thankfully my spears were able to push off this group, so I should be able to save this group. They will break, but I think I should be able to get them back, but unfortunately for me, I didn't see those guys coming. Very well played on my opponent's part. In the infantry battle, I would say it's going pretty well. You can see Wurzog's kind of going around. He used Ere We Go, but I still have my Tree Cannon. My spears are in pretty good shape, so the Tree Cannon here are laying a bit of a smackdown on these big uns, and the big uns seem to be having trouble getting through their armor, as well as that 20% mitigation of damage. So I do use another Flock of Doom here, and Dirthu is very, very hard to deal with for the Greenskins. So he's in here, he's just chopping these guys up. My opponent did get some Orc Boy big uns on him, but he is supported by spears, so the big uns aren't getting like a clean engagement on Dirthu. And as soon as I started to feel a little bit of pressure, and you can see the Doom Divers are actually pushing, I just marching back through the ranks. So the Hawk Riders are just very useful actually here. They probably racked up quite a few kills. They've actually racked up 21, so not huge, but I was able to charge in, and the Orc big uns were in the front line, so I was able to catch these Doom Divers off guard and break them, which is great. And now I can simply just sit here, turn around, and start shooting at these guys and get more kills. So definitely some good utility out of the Hawk Riders, because those Doom Divers were starting to put a bit of pressure on me. Very, very tough stuff there. But in the main kind of core of the battle, it's still very, very pitched. You can see he has a Goblin Big Boss here. He has a group of big uns here, a group here, and a very healthy group here that just slams right into my flank. So these Treekin are a little bit sandwiched right now. They're definitely, putting up a good fight here, not going down easily. And the leadership of the Wood Elves is definitely very good. And you can see the Gobos just slamming into the back of Dirthu here. Also, the spears here are still in good shape. And again, you guys saw the leadership when they were buffed in the beginning was like almost 100. So even though they're being like rear charged and sandwiched by Biggins, which are just hard-hitting troops, they're still continuing to fight. And Big Papa Dirthu, of course, is doing a great job kind of encouraging all of his troops. So you can see he's getting this big arcing swing, and he's definitely going to come down and lay a smackdown on some of these guys. So looks like he hit some of his own troops a little bit too, but that's a-okay, guys. So let's go ahead and take an overhead look at the battle and kind of try and get a view for things. So the Glade Guards are actually back, which is huge. So my spears were able to kind of catch some of these goblins, and also some of my Dryads were able to kind of wrangle these guys up, which is great. So the Dryads are able to break them, and well, they're wavering, soon to be broken. That was really nice, because that essentially opened up my Glade Guards here, who are now shooting freely into the back of Biggins. And Biggins are very weak against missiles. And also in that late game, the Flock of Doom is great. You can see a lot of his troops are getting terrified by Dirthu. They're taking that missile fire. And, you know, my Treekin in here are in good shape. They've been getting those Lure of Life heals all game. You can see there's 9 models here, there's 9 models here. So they actually haven't lost any models yet, which is huge. So they're continuing to do a good job. And you can see Dirthu's trying to use the Lamentation of Despair to hit Wurzog. But, you know, Wurzog, he's riding some circles, doing pretty good on his hog over here, definitely having a good time. I was trying to get him, but he was so slippery with his Dirthu this game. It was very tough. But he does use the Effigy of the Get to lock me down, and definitely a little bit of a scary situation. But he does have some troops. Unfortunately, these Goblin Wolf Fighters are coming back from route, and they're definitely going to lay a smackdown on some of my missiles. I was feeling pretty confident. You see pushing through, but, you know, the Gobbos always come back from route, guys, and they do pretty good here. So they're going to land some of these guys. You can see that guy catches a spear to the face, which is tough. They're going to go flying. So, you know, these guys are steady now, and they do have 43 models. So, you know, let's see. Their melee stats aren't terrible. 27 melee defense, and, you know, their weapon strength and melee isn't great, but yeah, 26 isn't bad. So they might actually be able to deal with these guys. You can see the Gobbos are actually wavering here. So he rides through and just hits 2 of my groups here, but still, you know, a very wild battle. You can see it looks like Wurzog using the Gaze of Mork. It does do magic damage, so against some of these units that have the physical resistance, that's going to be pretty nice. And you can see Dirthu does get out of the FG of the Get, and I was able to win this kind of central battle using Flock of Doom. You can see just absolute carnage over here. But, you know, some of these War Dancers are back, and look how fast they are. They're kind of like Forsaken in many ways. And my Spellsinger with the Lure of Life is also back from route, which is quite nice. So a lot of my troops coming back into the 4th quarter, but he still does have these Orc Arrow Boys that are in pretty good shape, and Dirthu is very low. So, you know, again, that focus fire on Dirthu, even though he has 100 armor, it's going to peck away at him and eventually do some pretty good work. So you can see the Biggins in here are in a very heated fight. These Eternal Guards are getting through, and also these Treekin are doing a pretty good job of whomping on them. And more importantly, guys, these War Dancers are going to get in here, and they get through to the back line. I wanted to really shut down this cannon. You can see the Awakening of the Wood, and these Gobbo crews are in some serious trouble. These, I wouldn't call them shield maidens, but, you know, they're definitely pissed off here, and they're going to cut through these Gobbos. You can see that one gets his arm chopped off. And, you know, they were made to cut through fodder units with their very high weapon damage and, you know, relatively low armor piercing. So, unfortunately, my opponent does have a lot of troops coming back. He's able to rally. Wurzog and the boys are able to catch my War Dancer, or not my War Dancer, but my Spellsinger out. Thankfully, she does get an Earthblade off, and I love that animation, but I believe she did get an Earthblade off before she died, or some other spell. But, my opponent's able to break her, and will most likely be killing her shortly. So, again, a lot of it has come down to this kind of tree and elf blob. It's not a truly Treekin army. It definitely has a lot of elves in it, but they're advancing here, and you can see Dirthu is taking a lot of missile fire. He's, okay, I'm gonna pause there. Let's go ahead and look at the HP. So he's down to about 2,000 HP, and, you know, the fire from these Orc Arrow Boys is definitely peppering them, but unfortunately, Orc Arrow Boys aren't terribly quick, and a lot of the Wood Elf infantry in the trees are a bit faster with 35 against their 31 move speed, and now they're chasing them down, and you can see these Arrow Boys just getting speared and run down. Very, very wild fight here. But, you know, again, with those Greenskin armies, a lot of troops come back from, you know, all sorts of directions. So he does have some Goblin Wolf Riders here. Over here, he does have some Biggins coming back, and also some Gobbo Spears. These War Dancers here continuing to do pretty good work, and are actually cutting down some of these Orc Warwood Biggins who are wavering. So, again, that high weapon damage against the low armor of the Greenskins is quite good. So, over here, some of my missile units did come back online. We're putting up a pretty good fight. Let's actually see how many kills they have. So 40 kills there and 32 there. Not the best, but some Dryads are able to help protect them. But still, you know, you just have a Goblin Big Boss as well as Wurzog on his pig here who's confident, and some Biggins as well. So definitely a very, very tough situation for my back line. But, you know, again, the Greenskins just had so much stuff that it was very, you know, tough to account for everything. And another annoying issue is these Arrow Boys did break, but now they're just going to come back, and I kind of only have this blob, and he still has enough mobility with Wurzog and this Goblin Big Boss that I didn't feel it was safe to kind of separate and split. So I do pull some of these Glade Guards and run them back towards my troops, have them start peppering these Arrow Boys, and then obviously these Treekin are going to come in and protect them. So the Treekin should be able to kind of smash on these Biggins here, who are pretty low and are already shaken. So you can see they march in, and a lot of the Biggins go down in that initial charge. They are terrified, probably because Big Papa Dirthu's over here. Unfortunately, he does use the effigy of to get, which actually I believe does damage as well. Yeah, I think it does a little bit of damage, but it does lock him in place, and it looks like the air boys are going to start shooting at him again. And you can see Wurzog is tempted. It looks like he's thinking about coming in here, but then he decides last second it's probably not a good idea. And some of these Orc Boar by Biggins come in here, but I rushed the spears to the defense. And though they weren't braced for that charge, I could not let Dirthu take that charge. I had to get in there, just do my thing, and not let them run rampant. So they do get terrified again. Terror is a very strong mechanic against the Greenskins, so I think Dirthu's a pretty good pick. And also, he does have a Flock of Doom, it looks like, or it looks like, yeah, the Lamentation of Despair. And he does hit Wurzog with it, makes some great contact, and then he uses the Flock of Doom. So you can see Wurzog just immediately breaks and flees, or at least he's terrified, but he's wavering. So he's most likely going to break here in a moment. You can see some of these trees and these spears just in this epic last stand, just putting up a great fight here. But unfortunately, my opponent does have those 2 missile units online, so he's doing a pretty good job of just kind of, pressuring me with those and just slowly peppering Dirthu down. Dirthu's very low. He only has like 1,000 HP now, but still the Greenskins don't have a lot of kind of a concentrated presence. It looks like, I still have this relatively decent core, and the Treekin, well, when we looked a few minutes ago, they had like, what was it, 9 and 8 models respectively. Now they're down to, it looks like 5 and 7, but still they're putting up a great fight. You can see Dirthu just absolutely pimp slaps that Goblin Big Boss and sends him running to the hills. So definitely very, very good stuff here. So again, I'm back to that same old drill of marching after these archers. I don't have any missile units left, nor do I have any mobility. Not terribly sure what happened to my Hawk Riders. I think I dove on something with them, and they got cut up a little bit and routed. So, but Dirthu is very low, guys. He only has 600 HP, and you can see it's tanking rapidly. He also has some Biggins coming back, but thankfully the leadership of my other troops is okay. And the balance of power in terms of the kind of army attrition is definitely heavily in my favor. So, that's a really good situation because my opponent's troops are going to start routing from army losses pretty shortly here. So, Wurzog's over here. He's wavering. This Goblin Big Boss he just keeps coming back for more, and I'm surprised. But the tree can get in here, and these guys didn't have enough the first time, so they had to come back and smack him around with some bark. Doing a pretty good job, and that is indeed game. So very well played. That was a super fun, heated, definitely a competitive game. So let's go ahead and take a look at the breakdown back here. So Dryads did really good, 71, 40 kills. I mean, obviously they're not going to perform across the board, but I really like the physical resistance. Definitely good fodder units against the Greenskins, and fairly durable for how much you're paying with the Forest Spirit. So War Dancer is pretty good, fast, mobile. Definitely some issues in the beginning. I should have kept them back a little bit. They advanced a little quickly and probably took some unnecessary fire. Though the Doom Divers, I don't think there was any getting away from that because, again, they're basically like heat-seeking, anti-light missiles. So pretty good stuff there. But the Hawk Riders did a good job shutting down his missiles. Glade Guards obviously did their thing, but Dirthu and the trees were just the absolute pimps this game. So, and of course the high leadership of these Eternal Guards. I actually didn't mean to chevron them up like that. I only had like a few seconds left in the lobby, and I just had all this money, so I was like, oh, hurry. But it actually worked out okay. So pretty fun stuff there for my opponent's army. It was very interesting. You don't see builds like this terribly often, using a lot of Gobos and Orc Airboys and things like that, but clearly he's a very good player, microed very well, and the strategy worked well. The Biggins were very effective at cutting through a lot of my low-tier infantry, so very well played to Serge Tonko. How do you say that? Sergeantko. It's a lot of fun, and I look forward to seeing you again on ladder, and I hope you guys enjoyed that Wood Elf cast. Have an excellent night, and take care.